Alright, Jen, now that the Johnny Test video is done, what do you have for me this time?
Well, you know how you ask your fans for feedback and thoughts on new videos and such?
Yeah, I do that pretty often.
Well, here's a new idea. I call it Let's Talk About.
Let's talk about.
Yeah, it's a new series you can make where you talk about smaller topics like scenes from TV shows, movies, and video games. You can still make your big videos while being able to talk about smaller topics at the same time. Here, I even got a list of ideas for you.
Expensive Lego sets, Funko Pops, WrestleMania's biggest missed opportunity. Really? You had to put that last one?
Yep.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. Now, what else is there? Ooh, yeah, this'll do nicely. Alright, let's do this. Hello everybody, welcome to my new series, Let's Talk About. You probably know what it's about thanks to Jen, but this series will be about different topics I want to discuss that I feel aren't enough to make a long video about, and this episode will be about Toy Story. You all know it, you all hopefully love it, it was the first fully animated movie and is one of, if not the best animated movie franchises ever. I love these four movies with all of my heart. Toy Story was the first movie I ever loved as a human being and will likely be my favorite movie series from Pixar. After saying this, you'd understand why I'd want to talk about every one of these movies, and you'd better believe I'd love to. But I feel it's a little too early in my channel's life to talk about them individually, so instead, I'm going to be talking about which Toy Story I think is the best. As always, this is just my own personal take on these movies. If you like them differently than I do, that's perfectly fine. I won't go too much into detail because this video would be far too long, so instead, I'll briefly go over all of them. The first Toy Story is still one of the greats in terms of Pixar movies, as well as being the first one they made. Yeah, the CGI doesn't hold up too well compared to modern-day Pixar, but it was 1995. They had to have 110 computers running 24 hours a day just to make this movie, and it's a technical feat to this day because of it. The story is easy enough to follow and really enjoyable. In a world full of living toys, of course there's a toy, Buzz, that doesn't realize it's a toy, and the favorite toy, Woody, is worried that Buzz will replace him, and by movie's end, they're both best friends. A nice, heartwarming story that Pixar is known for. And given the technical limitations of the time, I think it's a good story with toys because the animation wasn't good enough for consistent human movements. I mean, look at Andy's mom. Could you imagine a whole movie like that? Ugh. So, with what they had, I believe Toy Story is a wonderful animated movie and would have been amazing even if they hadn't made a sequel to it. Speaking of, Toy Story 2 is just as good, if not better than the original, and is honestly one of the greatest sequels ever made. Its story adds new fan-favorite characters and adds more onto the characters we already know and love. It has a story that adds more depth onto the characters and answers a lot of questions we asked from the first movie. What happens to a toy when a kid grows up? What if the toy gets broken? What does the toy do then? What if a toy can be loved forever? Would it take that opportunity? Some great questions that sparked up from the first movie are all answered very well, and the Prospector villain plot twist was one that a lot of people didn't expect. Also, my favorite Toy Story villain, Zurg, shines in this movie. Yup, I love Zurg more than Sid, the Prospector, Lotso, and Gabby Gabby. Yeah, he's the least important villain in the series, but it's Zurg. I mean, how do you not love him in every scene he's in? So, with a wonderful story and new characters to boot, Toy Story 2 is often seen as Pixar's greatest sequel with more than enough reasons why, and for many years, people wondered if Pixar would one day make a third edition to the Toy Story world, and in 2010, we got that threequel. Toy Story 3 takes place many years after 2 and ages just as well as its predecessors in terms of story. Andy's all grown up, so all the toys that are left decide to go to a daycare instead of being thrown in the attic or thrown out, where they think they'll be played with. I mean, they are, but not in a good way, which answers more questions in the Toy Story world that were asked before. We see that hierarchies do exist in toys thanks to the new characters we're introduced to, and we finally see what happens to toys when they're broken. When this movie first came out, a lot of people fucked with friends and the public, saying that all the toys died in the fire at the end, which made a lot of people worried near the end, because a lot of people, like myself, grew up with these movies, and didn't really want to see these characters go like that. But because of 4 existing, you know that's not gonna happen. They have to survive so the 4th movie can take place. So by movie's end, we see Andy say goodbye to all of his favorite toys, and we get a wonderful, emotional ending. A very good end to a seemingly perfect movie trilogy. Then we got the Forquel. Forquel? That sounds like Farquaad, but mispronounced horribly. Toy Story 4, while not really having much of a reason to exist, is still a wonderful successor to the movies before it, answering more questions that was asked in the Toy Story world before. We see what is arguably Woody's best character art, and Buzz is so weird in this movie, and I love it. We also get to see what happens to Bo Peep between 2 and 3, and... whoa. What happened to you, Bo? I really enjoyed Bo in 4 compared to her in 1 and 2 as well, and it's not for the reasons you think. The new characters are welcome additions to the movie as well. You can't go wrong with Betty White and Keanu Reeves, and there isn't a twist villain this time either. You can tell from the get-go that Gabby Gabby is a villain, but we get the first reformed villain in Toy Story, which I was taken aback by, and at the end of the movie, we get one of, if not the most emotional, tear-jerking moments in all of Pixar. Woody and Buzz, the characters we started this series off with, the characters we know and love that went through so much together, finally going their separate ways and saying goodbye to each other. Woody stays with Bo, and Buzz, along with the others, stay with Bonnie. Now, obviously there's going to be more Toy Story movies in the future. Lightyear is scheduled to come out in 2022, but for now, we have these 4. Out of these 4, it's often said that 2 is the best, and I firmly stand behind that. 2 has so much going for it and more some, but that doesn't mean the others are bad. Hell, none of these movies are bad in any way whatsoever. They're all wonderful in their own right. 2 is just better than all of them. Now, a lot of you will agree with me on 2 being the best, but a lot of you won't agree with me on what I think is the second best Toy Story. I gotta go with 4. I'm sorry, I like 4 more than 3. I'll get shitted on until the day I die, but I love 4 so much. I love Weird Buzz more than Spanish Buzz. I don't care what you call me. Your inner voice advises you. I love that scene! I like Gabby Gabby more than Lotso. I feel her character was more impactful by the end, and while I didn't enjoy the side characters taking the backseat for new characters, I did enjoy the new additions 4 gave compared to 3, as well as the emotional ending too. I never cried once watching the end of Toy Story 3, but I've cried every single time I've seen the end of Toy Story 4. 4 hits differently than 3 does to me, and take it as you will, this is not the first time I've had a mixed opinion on something I enjoyed. I believe Teenage Robot is one of the best, most underrated shows Nickelodeon made, and Undertale is my favorite game to this day. Both of those get mixed opinions from people. Undertale because, you know, and Teenage Robot because, well, nobody really remembers it, which is a shame, but I'm not getting into that just yet. This video is about Toy Story, back to that. It was a hard decision to pick between 1 and 3, and it was a close call, but I enjoyed 1 more than 3. I'm sorry for those of you who love 3. I'll admit it's a wonderful movie, and probably better than 1 and 4 in terms of story and character development, but I just enjoy the other 3 more than 3, if that makes sense. But do not get me wrong, I love 3. I love all of these movies, but I feel that because of 4 existing, it takes a lot of fire out of 3, pun partially intended. The most tense moment in Toy Story is just taken away from us because we know these characters have to survive in order to be in the 4th movie. Hopefully you guys can see where I'm coming from, but aside from that, I did enjoy 3, just not as much as the others. It's like Attack of the Clones for me. I really enjoyed watching it, but compared to others, I just find it the most forgettable. I don't remember most of the story as much as I do with the others, and that's a main reason why I put 3 on the bottom, but just below the first Toy Story. But honestly, these rankings don't really make a difference to me in terms of these movies, and they shouldn't for you either. All of these movies are enjoyable in their own right, and if you enjoy them differently for different reasons, that's perfectly fine. One of the main reasons why I enjoy seeing these movies so much is because of the difference in the CGI between the 4. I love seeing the technological advancement of computers, and CGI is one of the best examples of it. I mean, look at Woody from all 4 movies. This is the culmination of 24 years of CGI advancement. Look at the attention to detail in Woody's eye in 4. Being a tech-savvy person, a reason why 4 is my second favorite is partially because of the CGI in it, and because it has Keanu Reeves in it. I'm sorry, Keanu Reeves is my favorite actor, and he plays Duke perfectly in this movie. Duke is so good in this movie, and looks just as good too, but like I've said before, you don't need good graphics to make good games, and in this case, the same applies for CGI. It's just that anything with Keanu Reeves in it makes it somewhat better. But anyways, there are bad CGI scenes and acting in movies, but if the rest of that movie is good enough, you can easily excuse it, and the first Toy Story is a prime example of this. So, regardless of how bad these movies will look in the future, I will always enjoy them for their story, characters, and technological advancements. Along with many other reasons too. Toy Story remains my favorite animated movie series and some of the greatest animated movies ever made. Hopefully we'll see just as good Toy Story movies in the future, and I'm excited to see where CGI goes from here. I don't know how they're gonna top 4, but they're going to, and I can't wait to see it. And with that said and done, that's really my video on which Toy Story I think is the best. But before I end the video, I just want to say that, yes, a lot of people didn't like 4, yes, a lot of people believe 3 is almost as good as 2, and that's perfectly fine if you think that. One of the best things about consumable media is different opinions and people talking about it. That's one of the main reasons why I make these videos, because I like talking about this and interacting with people on what they think about it. So like I've said before, if you enjoy the Toy Story movies differently than I do, that's perfectly fine. And as always, thanks for watching, thanks to Jen as always for helping me with this video, and as always, take care, and have a good one.